Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off. Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Ryan, the original outlaw of the airwaves, bringing you another episode of Hero Paranormal. And tonight we have something a little bit different along the UFO file phenomena area. This is across borders, which is what I like. It's going a little bit further, or the actual name of what we're going to be discussing is Beyond the Spectrum. And we have one of my favorite people, and that's film producer, director at Occult Journeys, Darcy Weir. He is going to go over the latest documentary that he has on Amazon, and it has Masan's UFO files from Mexico. Now, what's very interesting about this is most of these files are much harder to document. They want no money, they want no fame, they really don't want any attention about it, and these are usually cases where, well, we'll get into that. Now, Darcy is coming to us from Vancouver, British Columbia, and he has been on the show before because of some of his other shows, and they are also available on Amazon. Definitely give Amazon a peek. Go through everything you can find on paranormal or UFO phenomena, and you'll probably see a few Darcy Weir productions. And what I like is they're honest productions. They usually go a little bit further than most, and they're documentary style for the most part. So check them out, and it's a whole new realm of documentary filmmaking, and that's what I like about Darcy. If you haven't been to heroparanormal.com, please go by, check it out. Just a website. Don't be scared of that archive button. It's also the donate button, and we have all of our free archives there. Be sure to check us out on Facebook at Hero Paranormal. You can also see our research project, SWR, which stands for Space Wolf Research. And check us out on YouTube, and you can get us at iTunes now. So, well, with nothing more to say, Darcy Weir, welcome to the Hero Paranormal Podcast.
How are we doing?
Doing great. I'm fascinated by your latest show on Amazon. It's got some interesting stuff.
Thanks, man. Glad you like it. Well, what would be one of the encounters that Jaime describes that kind of strikes your interest the most?
They're all pretty interesting. I think the one that is just the jaw dropper is, well, there's a few. There's the La Rumorosa case. I thought that was interesting. And also the kids playing baseball video. I thought what was most interesting about most of the videos, at least the video footage, was that these people had no real reason. They weren't looking for fame or money or really any attention for the most part.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, most of these people, for example, the baseball game humanoid, let's call it, that was at, we'll call it the Barunda Park incident, and that happened in the city of Juarez, Chihuahua, Mexico area in 2014. And Armando Martinez was recording his grandson playing, Little League softball. And it wasn't a defect in the camera. It wasn't a flaw that was present on the lens or something like that. There seemed to be, while he was recording this game, some visible entity or presence right in the middle of the baseball game. And, you know, the footage was taken by Jaime Maussan and his team directly. They analyzed the footage. They literally got it right off the phone from the old man that had recorded this video, and he didn't actually see this high strangeness that was going on in the video himself when he first looked at the video. He was just focused on his grandson and all the players on the park, on the diamond. And it came to his attention because his partner actually was looking at the video and said, "What is that? That is so strange." And then they looked at it together and they checked it out with their family, and they decided, let's reach out to Tercer Milenio, and that's how Jaime got involved in that case. So pretty interesting video, and it kind of goes to show that this stuff that we cover in this documentary, it tends to happen strangely more often in Mexico. And I mean, I can't say how many times I've ever heard of a close encounter or some kind of humanoid being caught on camera that's not other than Sasquatch. I mean, that is something that's covered in North America quite often, that, people say, "Oh, I got another video," or what have you, and you can find all that stuff pretty easily online. But in terms of this phenomenon where it's something that can't be described as human, it's interesting that it happens so often in Mexico, and that Jaime's team follow it up and dive into the story a bit deeper.
Jaime is awesome with how he really delves in there when he's given one of these cases. One of the other cases I couldn't talk to you without mentioning it is the Meridas alien, and what apparently looks sort of like a portal coming out and really almost trying to abduct someone in plain sight. And, looking at it, I thought to myself, this would be very, very hard to fake.
Yeah, I mean, over the years, no one has come forward saying that they faked that. The three boys that were involved in that recording, in that video, they're all adults now living in Mérida, Yucatan, Mexico, and they still affirm to this date that they've never been paid, they've never wanted fame, and actually quite obviously, if you watch the documentary, they got quite harassed by the mainstream media, saying they were liars, they were frauds, they were, basically causing problems and all that, and they didn't want that attention at all, and they wouldn't even talk to me when I followed up, when I went to interview them in this year, right? I went out and spoke to Gustavo Alaman, and he was one of the investigators that originally brought this to Jaime Maussan's attention, who lives out in Mérida, Mexico. And he showed me the location where it went down and, described what had happened and how it affected the boys that were involved. And, even the mayor was contacted. The mayor of Mérida was contacted by Jaime Maussan at the time, and he said, look, there's a really high level of radiation around this pole in this area of your city. We've got radiologists and physicists out here that are actually looking at the data, and it looks like it might be kind of dangerous, but the mayor wanted nothing to do with it, and didn't provide any more details about what was going on there. So it's pretty standard, though. Whenever this type of thing happens, you're shunned by mainstream media, you're locked out by any authorities to take it seriously. And, if everything looks okay, people just maintain the course and pretend like nothing has happened. But it was very incredible and a strange case where, if you even look at the video, it looks as if the being has no lower part of his body, is completely invisible to a certain extent, and then his torso and everything else becomes visible, and then somehow hides behind this really small pole that a normal person can't really stay within, hidden completely behind. So it seemed Jaime's theory is that it might have been stepping kind of out of a portal, but I have no way of completely justifying that claim or making that or saying that that's completely true. But based on the testimony of the boys who are now men, the investigators that went around, the sort of scientific data that there was high radiation in the area, and Jaime's crew, I found it was pretty incredible case.
Yeah, for the listeners, it's really hard to kind of describe. It's literally, this pole is like a 4-inch pole, and there's an entity that has an arm nearly at least 3/4 longer, if not twice as long as a human arm. And it's a big entity with a big head, it seems. And it reaches out and tries to grab this boy, and actually, I believe, does kind of graze him and touches him, and he felt what it felt like. It's an amazing, it's something that must be watched, and definitely check it out, Beyond the Spectrum on Amazon, because without seeing that image in your head, it's kind of hard to shake. And as if that's not enough, I thought that, the unjustified amounts of energy were just too high, that they were measuring it first. I believe it was 3 meters at first around the pole. And then the energy rose and went all the way to a Mayan pyramid, Zenho, and 1,000 times the normal level. Was there any, there's actual science behind this. And that's what's so great about Jaime and this documentary, Darcy, is it's not just, hey, here's an amazing video, but then there's real scientific research that went down afterwards. It was really cool.
Yeah, and I've been out to the Zenho complex. It's about, I'd say, an hour and a half outside of Merida. So maybe probably an hour outside of Merida. So I don't understand why there would be any radiation detected that normally wasn't there. They had a baseline, and then after this incident, they're detecting radiation even that far away. It's crazy.
It is. It's probably one of the most jaw-dropping cases in the documentary, but they're all pretty jaw-dropping. The interesting thing is that a lot of the people involved, there was the case in the UK with the guy that his dog freaked out and he saw a UFO over his house and ran in and grabbed a camera. And that case I thought was really interesting at how it ended up on the desk of MI6. And all of a sudden you have Her Majesty's intelligence on it, and then they get hacked, which is kind of showing how high this might go. But that case was very interesting because it was a video and then turned in, they were able, these hackers, if I'm not mistaken, were able to save some of the images. Is that correct, Darcy?
Yeah, it seemed like that's how it went down, according to the story. And those images ended up on a website that basically was taken down and has never been seen again about a month later. So this happened in 1999. Jaime Maussan got the images right around like a month after they went online. And the website went down shortly after, insidious.com. And allegedly they were still images from a video that was on a server that these hackers had leaked out. And Jaime believes that they had gotten in trouble and possibly just incarcerated. No one's heard of them again. But pretty interesting images. Looks like they kind of fit the description that so many people around the world have described as a gray alien. A group of them traveling around a farm sort of property. And you see what looks like a craft in the background, a triangular craft, which is also described as a vehicle that's quite often seen, the UFO. So, very interesting story. And yeah, we just wanted to, Jaime was one of the only people that ever talked about that, right? So, it was this documentary covers a whole gamut of different accounts. There's 8 different humanoid accounts that happened with Jaime reporting on this from around Latin America, and the England case was the only one that kind of didn't fit within Latin America there. And I'm making a follow-up documentary that will include other Latin American stories that have happened in terms of this humanoid sort of encounters or beings that people believe are not to be of human origin.
Oh, that's great. I love that you're not scared of like going beyond the boundaries. And there are cases like this that just kind of blow you away. One of them in your documentary, in fact, Gabriel, I believe his name was Gabriel. It was very strange. There was a shadow creature that was about the size of, 6 inches or so, going up and down stairs, and then he caught it in the house. And this is all done with, at the time, I believe it was just a flip phone technology, but you're very able to see this, and that was a lot more difficult to CGI back then with flip phone technology.
Oh yeah, the images came right off of his phone, the video image, everything you see, and like right onto a computer where Jaime and his team investigated that. And yeah, it was Gabriel Sainz, from Monterrey, Nuevo Leon. And it happened back in October of 2010. There was a storm outside, a hurricane, something like that, and he was confined to his house, and he was recording this video, and he heard at first sort of what sounded like laughter or like a children sort of crying noise, and inside of his home. And when he looked around, he found something that was not visible. It was kind of outside of the visible spectrum to his eye, but he started recording with his camera and he could pick it up. but it was still very invisible looking. It just looked more like a shadow with a little bit of shape. It had like a head and legs and arms and like little shoulders, and so it was a pretty incredible little case. Again, he was not a real believer in ETs or anything like that. He was more a believer of paranormal, beings or spirits. And he was working with a lady locally, and they were picking up data from around his apartment complex, and found that they were hearing sort of voices on their tape recorders, and sort of doing that whole paranormal research of this area, and they started getting data and started getting responses. So that was a pretty cool little case that happened there too. Yeah.
It's really creepy how it is semi-transparent and you can't really see the creature but once you see it, you can't unsee it. Through technology, whether a cell phone camera, the people can actually see what they couldn't see when they are at the location. Is that?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, like, basically the premise of my documentary series, Beyond the Spectrum, is, we have a couple different stories that we cover, but in every story, the sort of prevalent subject is that these things are happening that are beyond our comprehension, beyond our visible spectrum that we can see with our eyes, either UFOs or humanoid beings or underground bases, that's hidden in plain sight or hidden out of sight, below mountains and the like. And then I did do a documentary on abduction and people coming forward in large numbers and saying, yes, I was abducted and these things happened to me, and the media tends to keep that hidden or not acknowledge it as quite openly, right? Mm-hmm. So in this case, and in the Barunda Park baseball game, they seem to be somewhat invisible. Also, the Merida incident, invisible. And there's a couple other experiences that have happened to people where they say they see something that looks like an apparition, and it just kind of disappears. Strangely enough, from some of the people I've interviewed over the years about Sasquatch or Bigfoot encounters, people have described that they would see it physically at one point, and then all of a sudden, like, it would evaporate. It would sort of step into the forest and just completely disappear. You couldn't hear it. You couldn't track it. It's almost like it vanished. And I don't know what's at play there, but seems like it's something that wants to be hidden,
Yeah, it's very strange how that they can enter and exit, at least our reality, it looks like, especially in that Moretus case. I was blown away. I mean, there's no craft, there's no UFO, there's just this creature that literally is using kind of like a line in our sight, because it's a pole, just an electric pole, and they're just trying to enter our dimension, and they're finding a way, it seems like. And I hate to try to figure out what they're doing, but looking at some of these cases, there's, they're all really wild, but there's some similarities. For our listeners, it just appeared really like like a Christmas tree drone, all these lights kind of flashing, flying down, and then you basically start to see these transparent legs of some sort of entity appear, and it just begins walking down the street. That was mind-blowing, and it was caught from, I mean, people saw it, and it was also caught on a security camera. Is that correct, Darcy?
Yeah, multiple security cameras, in fact. Yeah. So it's quite common in Mexico for neighborhoods to have homes that are outfitted with multiple camera systems, and it's for security. It can be a bit dangerous, a bit more dangerous. We're lucky to live in the part of the world we do, that we don't have to worry about that type of thing. But this entity that kind of hovered down to the street and then started cruising down the street bipedally, two people saw it firsthand. It was a doctor, a medical doctor, and his daughter, and she left the house to look at it with her father. They had walked out because they had seen it on their security camera first, and they said, "Okay, let's go check this out. What is that?" And when they walked outside, it sort of detected them and turned around. What they said they saw with their naked eye was it took on the form of a human sort of silhouette, a humanoid being, and started walking towards them. And I watched the video. The daughter just freaked right out and ran away. She ended up slamming the front door and locking her father out. The poor guy had to walk around the back of the house. But basically, that same encounter, that same entity flying in and out of view, it was recorded on a second neighbor's security cameras. So two separate data sources that confirm a really strange encounter that was experienced by two eyewitnesses. And it's people have described this happening for years, and it's quite often people have recorded videos of humanoids flying in the air, and those are strange. You could chalk that up to being a flying drone, but in this case, where it definitely didn't look like a drone in the typical sense that a man-made drone, that is, that we would describe or see. It looks like some kind of shimmering, strange, like metallic seahorse or something like that, Mm-hmm. And then the fact that people said it sprouted legs and, had a human figure at one point, that's just mind-boggling. It's super strange. And lends to the idea that we're dealing with something that's higher technology and possibly extraterrestrial. Yeah. Then it's definitely something worth looking into further,
It really does. It's hard to explain to the listeners. They really have to watch this. And it really does look like sort of a, like you said, like this shimmering, flashing, amorphous blob, like biological, but yet metallic, and missing spaces and areas and then gaining them. And then boom, legs coming out and walking, just kind of very easy to assimilate into our reality. And it's just it's amazing footage, and it's just really cool that different angles of the same footage are shown. And it's, again, having witnesses too, it's really wild. Not to go off too much on that one, but there are other cases. I've seen other cases of similar things, and I thought it was really cool that you had two cases, both the baseball video and that one. And there's just so many, it's hard to pick the best ones. It's really a documentary everybody should see, because not all of them really revolved around footage, which I thought was great. Others were eyewitness accounts with multiple people having the same experience. The case with the snakes, and then, oh my gosh, if you could tell our listeners a little bit about that case, that blew me away. And then, yeah, I mean, craft, and then, I mean, the contact level with possible extraterrestrials went through the roof.
Yeah, La Rumerosa in the sort of Baja California region. So it happened in May of 1999, and that's when the three gentlemen were basically on an expedition, a hike, camping out. I think the initial thought or intention for that expedition was just to do a day hike that was, a full, let's say, 16-kilometer day. And you're looking at a very rocky terrain, hilly desert, I guess the closest thing to that would be somewhere like Joshua Tree in California. And, big boulders of rocks and such. And these men were trying to get back home, and they basically got a little bit lost. They ended up having to spend the night in the desert. And while they were in the desert, they noticed there was plenty of snakes. Jaime calls them serpents in the documentary. And these snakes are highly venomous, quite a bit intimidating. So they decided to take refuge in a tree. And they climb this tree. They're trying to relax up there as best they can, get a bearing of where they are as well, to overlook the landscape. And they're up a hill anyways, so they do have a bit of a vantage point to see what's going on around them. They do notice across from them, at a adjacent hill, a bunch of lights coming down the hill. And it looked like other hikers that were traveling towards them. So they're yelling and screaming, "Hey, we're over here, come over here." And on the horizon line, apparently, they also saw what looked like UFOs. They saw triangular crafts. They saw a disc-shaped craft, and they kind of came above their tree at one point. But while they were viewing all these these lights coming towards them, they started to discern as this approaching force became more and more visible, closer, that they weren't human. They looked humanoid. They looked like they had these classic egg-shaped heads, big black eyes. They were short in stature, skinny, sort of spindly legs and spindly arms. And some of them were a little bit taller, but overall were quite a bit smaller than the men and the boys that were there. And believe it or not, what they said was that the humanoids climbed up the tree, observed them very closely, but they were like almost transparent, and they glowed, and they actually climbed into this ship and left them. And two of the boys were a little bit younger. One of them was 21, and so was, a man. And the others were, I think, 13 and 16. And they were shaken. They were completely gobsmacked at what they were seeing and experiencing, and they ran back to their town, La Rumorosa. They told everybody what they had seen. This ended up getting reported back to, mainstream newspapers and stuff like that, and Jaime Maussan picked up the story. So Jaime Maussan, he decided to send his team out there, and he was going to go, of course. When he went out there, it was October of 1999. So this happened in May originally, and they went out there in October. Extremely hot during the day, but then at night, very cold, as desert climates tend to be. And they went to the same tree, the same lookout point where the boys had experienced this encounter, to sort of recreate and get a video footage of where this all happened and their testimony in person, recorded testimony of what they had seen. So while they're out there, Jaime Maussan was actually woken up, and they had seen UFO activity in that area. They had heard of multiple groups. I actually have footage of the UFO investigative groups that had gone out there and recorded live video of UFOs in that area. And I didn't include it in the documentary. I think I'm going to include it in another one. But those men had contacted Jaime, let him know about UFOs in the area as well that were still active and possibly are active today. Anyways, the whole team had seen UFOs at night, and Jaime had gone to sleep. He was woken up, and when he went to see what they were looking at, he got binoculars and he saw what looked like two humanoid beings that were down this sort of hill. They were probably about 100 meters away, and walking in between large boulders and rocks, they could see them popping in and out of view. And they were observing something along the desert terrain. He wasn't quite sure of observing, but they had found signs that in this area there were rocks that were machined. They seemed to be split right in half with some kind of machine tool, and in this area, it's very poor. There's no one that really has technology to do this type of thing. Some of the rocks almost look laser cut. And Jaime had found a rock at this area, brought it back. They investigated that as well. But they tried to record video of these beings that they had seen that night, and Jaime was just blown away. It was his first sighting of what could be described as something extraterrestrial or non-human. And there was a guide that came on their trip. The guide was, a nature guide, so he's cataloged everything in that sort of area before. And when they were traveling out to the geographical area to investigate all this, the guide was making fun of Jaime Maussan, making fun of pretty much everybody that was doing the investigation, saying, oh yeah, we're going to get abducted and there's aliens up there, watch out, and all this stuff.
And apparently he was shaken when he saw these beings himself that night. The guide said, and I quote, he said, "This is a revelation from God." So it was a pretty interesting case. And, you know, the fact that Jaime saw something himself and he testifies to the fact, that's a pretty big deal. Not a lot of investigators, you know, there's so many journalists out there. There's people like George Knapp that take these types of sightings with credibility. He takes them into account. You know, George Norrie, Richard Dolan, all these types of people that believe that something is happening around our planet that is incredible, but I don't know how many of them have actually seen anything firsthand. And George Knapp has even been out to places like Skinwalker Ranch, and he tried to experience something, but never experienced something with his firsthand, with his own naked eye. And so I find it quite interesting and cool that Jaime Maussan was able to actually experience something himself and report about it.
Yeah, to go out into the area and put himself in harm's way. It's a dangerous area. It looks beautiful and rugged, but looks dangerous. And he went out there, and you're right. The fact that these could be entering our reality, whatever they are. I like that you say non-human, Darcy, because we really don't know what they are and what they're doing. I mean, possibly messing with rocks, possibly taking people. But when you spoke with the people, were there similarities as to what the people believed they were here doing?
I think the common view from all these cases is that whatever the humanoid was doing there, they were sort of investigating. That the humanoids looked like they were observing and doing some kind of research by being there. As far as the baseball diamond video goes, you can kind of see the object move a bit, but not very far, and it seems to be taking interest in the children. The Merida incident, the being takes interest in these young boys. In the Insidiar.com incident in England, the humanoids seem to be researching or investigating this property where this man had caught video of them. In the Filiberto Capone incident that happened in Italy, this being seemed to be interested in Filiberto. Gabriel Sands, in that incident, this being seemed to also take interest in him, but it seemed to also be taking refuge in his home because there was this hurricane originally. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then in the La Rumorosa, Baja California incident, it seemed like they were investigating minerals and looking at the geography of the desert. So something interesting was happening there too. But it all seems, I mean, if you think about our planet and you look at how we treat other cultures, other beings that exist on our planet, we're constantly investigating and researching everything around us. And if you thought about a spacefaring race that was able to visit Earth, this is like a fascinating planet. There's so much going on. There's war. There's different technology being developed. We are genetically a unique being. There's a flora and fauna surrounding us that complements what we do here on the planet, how we subsist and exist. So there's lots of interesting things about our planet, and who's to say that we're not, being investigated or researched just like we would go to another planet ourselves and investigate and research it.
Yeah, exactly. The shimmering humanoid drone-like, again, no spaceship, just kind of flying down onto a road and walking with almost like legs appearing, also seemed very dimensional and seemed to know where it was going and what it was doing. And it had a kind of a mission, and they all seemed to be doing something. And I love how you mentioned that it's a very interesting planet. They could do this for millennia, just finding stuff out. Really, really cool documentary, Darcy. I highly recommend everybody watch it on Amazon. And where can people keep up with you, what you're doing, and things of that nature?
Sure. Thank you. Well, the films are all available on Amazon Prime. They're on Tubi TV, iTunes, Google Play, YouTube Red, whatever you fancy to watch through. And we have a Facebook group that's called Occult Journeys, and we have a Facebook page called Beyond the Spectrum Documentaries series. Working on 4 more films right now, so as soon as those are out, I will contact you, and thank you for checking out the films I've been doing. This one's very different from all the other ones. You'll notice that each documentary is very different from each other, and that's the way we sort of like to do it. We want to analyze different aspects of different parts of UFOlogy and the phenomenon, and just shine some interesting light on them, and incredible light. I think some pretty incredible light too. So thanks for talking with me today, Ryan, and I hope you're doing well.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Darcy. Hope to talk to you soon, and amazing work. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Darcy Weir, the class act from way up north. He is literally killing it when it comes to these documentaries. He does such a good job of not only explaining what's going on, he gets into the work itself, and he actually is interested in what the truth behind it is. Tries not to describe what he believes it is, but he really does a good job of going through each case, analyzing it if there is footage, and even if there's not footage, getting into what really happened with the eyewitnesses. Going to Mexico, talking to them in person, having Jaime at his side, really knowledgeable. And this is a documentary that anybody that's even mildly interested in phenomena, UFOs, or even if they're not interested, if they just want to see some amazing, fascinating footage, oftentimes caught by accident. Cell phones at baseball games. We're talking security cameras in front of businesses and homes. These individuals that aren't out trying to find this, but it finds them, and they're able to document it in some way, shape, or form. Must watch Beyond the Spectrum on Amazon Prime is where I saw it. Really great show, and it's a lot like Darcy's other shows. I'm excited to see what else he comes out with, and I can't wait to have him back on. Definitely check it out. Check out Darcy Weir. Go to Amazon and look at his documentaries. Also, check out our website, heroparanormal.com, so you can keep on top of all of the archives and all of the podcasts coming out. You can also do the same on YouTube, like and subscribe there. And definitely check out our research project, spacewolfresearch.com. Until next time, keep your eyes to the skies, feet on the ground, but don't forget to take a look around.
Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off. Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off, blast off.